Even as they watched, the shadow of night began to drain from its slopes below a deepening band of pink and gold and white. They parked the car at the trailhead, and they could see from the untracked snow that no one else had been there. They sat together beneath the tailgate and put on their boots. The owner of the motel had made sandwiches for them, and they ate one apiece and drank steaming sweet coffee and watched the shadows around them slowly fill with light. The first few miles would be steep, so they fitted skins to their skis to give them grip. The boy's father checked the bindings and that their avalanche transceivers were working, and when he was satisfied that all was in order, they shouldered their packs and stepped into their skis. "You lead," his father said. The journey they had planned for that day was a loop of some 15 miles. They had made the same trip 2 years before and found some of the best skiing either had ever known. The first 3 hours were the hardest, a long climb through the forest, then a perilous zigzag up the northeast side of a ridge. But it was worth it. The ridge's south face was a perfect, treeless shoulder that dropped in 3 consecutive slopes into the next drainage. If all went well, by the time they reached the top, the sun would just have angled onto it, softening the top half-inch of snow while the base remained frozen and firm. These back-country ski trips had become their yearly ritual, and the boy now looked forward to them as much as he knew his father did. His snowboarding friends back home in Great Falls thought he was crazy. "If you wanted to ski," they said, "why not go someplace where there's a ski lift?" And in truth, on their first trip 4 years ago in the Tetons, he feared they were right. To a 12-year-old, it had seemed like a lot of effort for precious little fun. Too much up and not enough down. At times he had come close to tears. But he kept a brave face, and the following year went again. His father was away from home on business much of the time, and there weren't many things they ever got to do together, just the two of them. Sometimes the boy felt they barely knew each other. Neither of them was much of a talker. But there was something about traveling together through these wild and remote places that seemed to bind them closer than words ever could. And little by little he had come to understand why his father enjoyed the uphill as much as the down. It was a curious formula of physical and mental energy, as if the burning of one fueled the other. The endless rhythmic repetition, sliding one ski past the other, could send you into a kind of trance. And the thrill and sense of achievement when you reached that faraway summit and saw a slope of virgin spring snow reveal itself below could be close to overwhelming. Perhaps he came to feel this way simply because each year he had grown stronger. He was taller than his father now, and certainly fitter. And though not yet as wise in his mountain craft, he had probably become the better skier. Perhaps that was why today, for the first time, his father was letting him lead. For the first hour, the trail was darkly walled with lodgepole pine and Douglas fir as it rose ever higher along the southern side of the winding canyon. Even though they were still in shadow, the climb soon had them sweating, and when they paused to gather breath or to drink or to shed another layer of clothing, they could hear the muted roar of the creek far below. Once they heard the crashing of some large creature somewhere in the timber above them. "What do you think that was?" the boy said. "Deer. Moose, maybe." "Would the bears be waking up yet?" His father took a drink from his canteen, then wiped his mouth with the back of his glove. This was prime grizzly country, and they both knew it. "Guess so. Days have been warm enough this past week." An hour later they had stepped out of the trees and into the sunlight and were picking their way across a gully filled with the crazed debris of an avalanche, jagged lumps of frozen snow and rock skewered with trees sundered from their roots. They reached the ridge a little before 10 and stood side by side, surveying in silence all that unfolded below and around them, mountain and forest quilted with snow and the flaxen plains beyond. The boy felt that if he squinted hard enough, he might even defy science and all the world's horizons and see the backs of their own two selves, tiny figures on some distant snowy peak. The shoulder below them looked as good as they had hoped. The sun was just upon it, and it glistened like white velvet strewn with sequins. They took off their skis and unhitched the skins from which they carefully brushed the snow before stowing them in their packs. There was a cold breeze up here, and they put on their jackets, then sat on a bench of rock and drank coffee and ate the last of the sandwiches, while a pair of ravens swirled and called above them against the lazuli sky. "So what do you think?" his father asked. "Looks pretty good." "I'd say this is about as close to heaven as a man can get." As he spoke, one of the ravens banked before them, its shadow passing across his face. It landed a few yards from them along the ridge, and the boy tossed a crust of bread toward it, which made the bird flutter and lift again, but only for a moment. It resettled, and with a cocked head inspected the crust, then the boy, then the crust again. It seemed almost to have summoned the courage to take it when its mate swooped in and snatched it instead. The first bird gave a raucous call and lifted off in pursuit, and the boy and his father laughed and watched them tumble and swerve and squawk their way down into the valley. As with the climb, the boy led the descent. The snow felt as good beneath his skis as it had looked. The sun had melted the surface just enough to give purchase, and he quickly found his rhythm. He spread his arms and opened his chest to the slope below as if he would embrace it, savoring the blissful swish of each turn. His father was right. It was as near to heaven as you could get. At the foot of the first of the three slopes, where the gradient leveled a little, the boy stopped and looked back to admire his tracks. His father was already skiing down beside them, carefully duplicating each curve, keeping close and precisely parallel until he arrived alongside and the two of them whooped and slapped each other's upheld palms. "Good tracks. Yours are coming along, too." His father laughed and said he would ski the next slope first, and that when he got to the next level he would take some photographs of the boy's descent. So the boy watched him ski down and waited for the call, and when it came, he launched himself into the sunlit air, giving all he had for the camera. From where they stood next, at the foot of the second slope, they could see all the way down into the drainage, where the sun had yet to seep. They knew from the last time they had skied here that the creek that ran along the bottom was a series of pools and steep waterfalls. It had been warmer then, and there had been a lot less snow, and except for some crusted ice at the pool edges, the running water had been exposed. Now, however, it lay buried beneath all the heaped snow that had funneled into the creek, and all they could see were contours and ominous striations. His father looked at his watch, then shielded his eyes to peer at the sun. The boy knew what he was thinking. Half the slope below them was still in shadow. The air down there would be colder, and the snow not yet transformed. Maybe they should wait a while. "Looks a little icy," his father said. "It'll be okay. But if you're feeling chicken, let's wait." His father looked at him over his sunglasses and smiled. "Okay, hotshot. Better show me the way, then." He handed the boy the camera. "Make sure you get some good ones. They'll only be as good as your skiing. Wait till I holler." He put the camera in his jacket pocket and grinned at his father as he moved off. The snow for the first few hundred feet was still good, but as he came closer to the rim of the sunlight, he felt the surface harden. When he turned, there was almost no grip and no swishing sound, only the rasp of ice against the steel edges of his skis. He stopped where the sun met the shadow and looked up the slope where his father stood against the sky. "How is it?" his father called. "Kinda skiddy." "It's okay." "Wait there. I'm coming." The boy took off his gloves and pulled the camera from his pocket. He managed to get a couple of shots with the zoom as his father skied down toward him. The third picture he took would later show the exact moment that things began to go wrong. His father was starting a right turn, and as he transferred his weight, the